In the intricate dance of life, there's a quiet power that's often overlooked, one that doesn't announce itself with loud gestures or bold proclamations. The power of restraint, silence, and calculated action. It's a power that's been present in your life all along, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to rise. And today we're about to dive deep into the story of how you, the chosen one, used this very power to fool those who never suspected a thing. They laughed at you. They thought you were harmless. But what they didn't realize is that the joke was always on them. From the very beginning, they got it all wrong. They saw your calmness and assumed you were clueless. They saw your silence and assumed you were weak. They saw your patience and believed you were just biding your time in ignorance. That was their first mistake, their critical miscalculation, and the foundation of everything that followed. Every move they made, every mistake they made, was simply them digging a deeper hole, one they didn't know they would never get out of. Meanwhile, you, the chosen one, stood there silently, watching, observing, and waiting for the perfect moment. You didn't need to hide. You didn't need to put on a show. You simply allowed them to believe the story they wanted to believe, and that belief cost them everything. Life has a way of showing us the power of stillness. There's a certain kind of quiet that holds immense power within it. Imagine a venomous snake lying in the grass. It doesn't chase. It doesn't warn. It doesn't explain itself. It just waits. The animals around it, loud and unaware, stomp around, thinking they have the power and control of the land. But all it takes is one careless step, one wrong move, and suddenly it's all over. That's exactly what you were. Silent, still, observing. While they were busy flexing, talking too much, and making all the noise, you were already positioned in such a way that the game was already over. They thought they were winning, but all the while you were the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. It's an undeniable fact that the most dangerous people in any room aren't the loud ones. They're the ones who observe, who remember, who stay emotionally untouched by the chaos. It's those people who know how to control the situation without ever raising their voice or drawing attention to themselves. Psychology has proven it time and time again. People who react less and observe more ultimately gain control over situations without the need for force or aggression. The loudest voices, the ones that demand attention, often give themselves away in their need for validation. They expose their weaknesses through their own noise. On the other hand, those who stay quiet, those who observe and listen, hold the power to manipulate the narrative. You've always known this instinctively, even if you didn't fully understand it at the time. You weren't the one caught up in the noise. You weren't chasing validation or trying to prove anything. You simply let them talk, let them show themselves, let them expose their true nature without ever feeling the need to react or confront them directly. That's the beauty of silence. Silence allows others to reveal themselves. And when they do, it's no longer about you. It's about them. They underestimated you. They misread your stillness and thought you were losing. But what they didn't know was that you were gathering every little piece of information, every subtle movement, every hidden truth, and you were already one step ahead. This is where the magic happens. When people react emotionally, they lose control. They become predictable. They repeat the same patterns, make the same mistakes, and inevitably expose their vulnerabilities. But when you stay calm, when you remain unmoved by the chaos around you, you gain the upper hand. The ones who thought they were in control, who thought they had the power, are now the ones who are restless, confused, and spiraling in private. Why aren't you reacting? Why aren't you chasing them down? Why aren't you upset? Their attempts to provoke you no longer work. Their manipulations fall flat. They can't figure out why they're losing their grip on you. The answer is simple. You were never playing their game. They were playing yours, and they just didn't know it yet. They thought you were behind, but in reality you were always ahead. They thought your silence meant confusion, but it actually meant you were calculating your next move. Every word they said, every gesture they made, every little inconsistency in their actions became part of the puzzle you were slowly piecing together. While they were out there flexing, trying to prove something, you were watching their every move, analyzing their patterns, and seeing the cracks in their facade. You let them think they were winning because in the end, their arrogance would be their downfall. You didn't need to expose them. You didn't need to call them out. You simply watched. And as time passed, their masks began to crack, their stories stopped lining up, and they slowly started revealing their true selves. This process didn't happen overnight. It was subtle at first, but as they kept playing their little games, their confidence started to erode. They couldn't understand why you weren't reacting the way they expected. They started to feel the discomfort of not knowing what you were thinking. And that discomfort grew into fear, not loud, panicked fear, but a quiet, nagging fear that wouldn't let them sleep at night. They knew they had made a mistake, but by then it was too late. They had already exposed themselves, and you had already positioned yourself to take control. There was no confrontation, no public showdown. The damage had been done in silence, and the universe had taken care of the rest. You were never the victim in this story. They thought they could control you, manipulate you, use you for their own gain, but all along you were the one in control. They thought you were harmless. They laughed at you. They underestimated you. But that was their biggest mistake. And now they are the ones who have to live with the consequences of their own arrogance. You didn't need to fight back. You didn't need to prove anything. You simply let them play their game, and in the end they played themselves right into your hands. If any of this feels familiar to you, if you can feel the truth of it resonating deep within you, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. You are the chosen one. You are the one who can see through the noise, the one who understands the power of silence, restraint, and patience. And now it's time to claim your power. It's time to stop playing small and start owning the strength that's always been within you. You didn't need them to validate you. You didn't need their applause. You didn't need anything from them. And now they're the ones who are left questioning everything, wondering how they were fooled so completely. So stay calm. Stay observant. Stay unreadable. They've already learned their lesson. And now it's your turn to move. There's a profound truth that most people miss in the chaotic rush of life. Silence often speaks louder than words. It is in the stillness and the moments when no sound fills the air that true strength is revealed. For the chosen one, this silence wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a mark of unparalleled power, a weapon carefully concealed and wielded with grace. It's an irony that most people, blinded by their own assumptions, overlook the loud ones. The ones who create the most noise are the ones who believe they have the most control. But the truth, the one that the chosen one knew all along, is this. Those who make the least noise are often the ones holding the most power. The loud ones, those who talk over others, those who fill every space with their words, their energy, and their theatrics, are often the ones who think they are leading the room. But in reality, they are simply giving away their position. They are revealing too much, showing their hand too early, and exposing their own vulnerabilities in the process. In a world that often rewards those who speak the loudest, the quiet ones are underestimated. They are overlooked, dismissed as inconsequential because their presence doesn't demand attention. But that very quietness is their greatest strength. The chosen one understood something. Fundamental power doesn't need to scream to be heard. Power doesn't need to announce itself to be effective. True power lies in control, in the ability to observe, to study, and to act with precision when the time is right. The chosen one wasn't concerned with dominating conversations, leading the charge, or stealing the spotlight. Instead, they focused on something far more strategic. They observed. They listened. They watched. And in doing so, they gathered invaluable knowledge that would later prove to be their greatest advantage. They thought silence meant weakness. The greatest underestimation of the chosen one came from those who mistakenly believed that silence equaled weakness. When people are loud, when they are constantly speaking, constantly asserting themselves, they often mistake their volume for authority. But the chosen one knew that true authority didn't need to shout. They knew that silence was not an absence of strength, but the presence of immense power held in reserve. At first glance, the chosen one appeared to be the opposite of the dominant characters in the room, the ones who spoke the most, who dominated conversations, who thrived on attention. To those who didn't truly see, the chosen one may have seemed timid, passive, or unsure, but those perceptions were nothing more than illusions. Silence was never a sign of indecision. it was a deliberate choice. It was a conscious decision to withhold judgment and action until the perfect moment arrived. In the world of the chosen one, patience wasn't just a virtue, it was a strategy. And while others were busy making noise, scrambling for validation and expending their energy, the chosen one was observing, gathering information, and preparing for the moment when action mattered most. The strategic use of silence. Silence, when wielded strategically, becomes an instrument of immense power. The chosen one understood that silence wasn't a passive state, but an active choice that allowed them to observe and process everything happening around them. In a world where everyone is constantly talking, constantly performing, silence is a rare commodity. And in that rarity lies its power. The true strength of silence lies in its ability to reveal. When you remain quiet, people feel the need to fill the void with words, with actions, with distractions. And in doing so, they expose themselves. The chosen one knew that every word spoken, every move made was a window into a person's true intentions, their desires, their insecurities. The more they spoke, the more they revealed. And as the chosen one stood back in silence, they could see it all: the inconsistencies, the contradictions, the falsehoods, and the hidden motives. This was the power of observation. This was the advantage of silence. While others were busy filling the space with their noise, the chosen one was processing, connecting the dots, and reading between the lines. They understood that the quietest moments often held the most truth. And by staying silent, they gave themselves the space to absorb every detail, to study every reaction, and to understand every player in the game. When you are silent, you are not passive. You are actively engaging with the world in a deeper way. You are taking in more information than anyone realizes. In many ways, silence becomes a mirror. It reflects the true nature of those around you. It forces them to reveal what they might not otherwise show. And for the chosen one, this was the perfect opportunity. While others were busy talking, boasting, or making their moves, the chosen one was letting the world expose its true self. Every false smile, every manipulative tactic, every inconsistency became a clue, a piece of the puzzle that the chosen one would use when the time came to make their move. The false assumption of power. The loudest voices in the room often believe they are the ones in control. But that assumption is a dangerous one because it blinds them to the true power around them. The chosen one knew that real power doesn't demand attention, it quietly waits for the right moment to act. And this is where the loud, attention-seeking individuals made their critical mistake. They assumed that because they were the ones speaking the most, they were the ones leading the charge. They thought their noise was a sign of strength. But in reality, it was their greatest vulnerability. By constantly seeking attention, by constantly asserting themselves, these individuals exposed their insecurity. They needed others to hear their voices, to validate their presence, to confirm their worth. But the chosen one knew that validation wasn't required for real power. Power doesn't need to prove itself, it simply is. And while the loud ones were busy trying to convince everyone of their importance, the chosen one quietly observed, noting every inconsistency, every false move, and every crack in their facade. What these individuals didn't realize was that the more they talked, the more they revealed. They couldn't see it, but the chosen one could. Every boast, every exaggeration, every inflated claim was a clue that they were operating from a place of insecurity. And insecurity, no matter how loud or confident it appears, is always a sign of weakness. The chosen one understood this. They knew that people who feel the need to constantly prove themselves are often the ones who have the most to hide. As the chosen one remained silent, the loud ones grew more comfortable in their delusion. They thought they were winning. They thought they were in control. But all the while, they were unknowingly making themselves predictable. The chosen one wasn't swayed by their noise. Instead, they saw the patterns. They understood the game, and when the time came to make their move, they did so with the clarity of someone who had been watching from the sidelines, waiting for the right moment to strike. It's a simple truth. Arrogance blinds people. It makes them sloppy. It makes them predictable. And when the chosen one remained quiet, observing and waiting for the right moment, the loud ones thought they were still in charge. They never realized that the chosen one had already calculated their next move, had already seen through their facade, and was simply waiting for them to reveal their final misstep. In the end, it was their own arrogance that led to their downfall. They underestimated the power of silence, the power of patience, and the power of observation. And by the time they realized the truth that they had been fooled, it was too late. The chosen one had already won not through force, but through the quiet mastery of restraint. In a world that constantly demands noise, the chosen one knows that silence is not only powerful, it is strategic. Silence is not weakness, it is strength. It is the quiet force that allows one to observe, to calculate, and to wait for the perfect moment to act. While others are busy filling the air with their noise, the chosen one stands quietly observing, gathering the information they need to take control without ever lifting a finger. And when the time comes to strike, they do so with precision, leaving no room for anyone to react. The loud ones may have thought they were in control, but in reality they were always one step behind. The chosen one was never the victim in this story. They were the master of the game, and they always knew it. The very nature of life is change, and sometimes change creeps in so quietly it can't be seen until it's already upon us. It's like a tidal wave that slowly builds beneath the surface, and by the time it finally crashes, there's no escaping its power. For the chosen one, this moment of shift, this turning of the tides was inevitable. It was the moment when everything changed. When the manipulation, the noise, and the arrogance of those who thought they had the upper hand began to crumble. And it was at this moment, the one they never saw coming, that the chosen one revealed their true power. Not by reacting, not by confronting them, but by standing still, observing and allowing the universe to handle the consequences. The shift in power. It was subtle at first. The signs were faint, almost imperceptible, like the shift in the wind before a storm hits. At first, the manipulators, those loud, arrogant characters who believed they were in control, kept pushing forward. They were still playing their games, thinking they had the upper hand, thinking they were still calling the shots. But the chosen one had already positioned themselves. They had already stepped out of the game. No longer did they react to the manipulative tactics or respond to the noise. Instead, they simply observed. And in this observation, they discovered what was truly happening beneath the surface. The manipulative tactics of the loud ones were starting to fail, but they couldn't see it. They kept pushing, kept trying to control the narrative, and yet their methods were growing weaker. The more they tried to provoke, the more they tried to manipulate, the more their actions exposed the cracks in their facade. They had relied too long on deception, arrogance, and emotional games to keep their power intact. And now, as the chosen one stood back quietly waiting, those cracks began to widen. The universe was quietly working behind the scenes, shifting the balance in ways the manipulators couldn't perceive. In moments like these, power doesn't change hands with a dramatic showdown. Power shifts when someone is able to detach from the noise, step outside of the chaos, and allow the universe to bring things into alignment. The chosen one didn't need to intervene or raise their voice. They didn't need to fight, they simply needed to wait. And while others continued to believe they were in control, they were unaware that their own actions were slowly unraveling everything they had built. The chosen one had already positioned themselves for victory by being calm, by being observant, and most importantly, by allowing the shift to occur naturally. How they exposed themselves. As the manipulative tactics of the loud ones began to fail, something extraordinary started to happen. The very things they had relied on to maintain their control, emotion, arrogance, manipulation, began to backfire. They were no longer able to maintain the illusion they had so carefully crafted. And with every failed attempt to regain control, they exposed more of themselves to the chosen one. Arrogance, when unchecked, always reveals its true nature. And in the case of the manipulators, their arrogance made them sloppy. They began to make mistakes they would never have made if they had been more cautious. The cracks in their facade became more apparent. Emotional outbursts that once seemed controlled now appeared as signs of desperation. Every insult, every attempt to undermine the Chosen One, every outburst of anger was a window into their weakness. And the Chosen One didn't need to say a word. They didn't need to argue. They didn't need to fight back. They simply watched. And in watching, they saw the truth. They saw who the manipulators really were beneath the surface, their insecurities, their lies, and their self-deception. The Chosen One knew that this was how it always happened. When you allow people to expose themselves, they will. The louder they get, the more they reveal. The more they try to cover their weaknesses, the more they show them. And the Chosen One knew exactly how to stay still and let this process unfold. They didn't rush in to confront them. They didn't attack. They didn't need to. By remaining calm, by not reacting to their provocations, the Chosen One allowed the manipulative tactics to destroy themselves. And that was the most beautiful part of it. The manipulators were so focused on their own narrative, they never saw the Chosen One quietly observing, letting them make their mistakes. The silence of the Chosen One was not weakness. It was strength. It was the power to watch as others revealed their true selves. And as the manipulators made their mistakes, the Chosen One saw it all. They didn't need to confront them because they knew that eventually the truth would come out on its own. And it always does. The final blow. In the end, the Chosen One didn't need to strike a blow. They didn't need to react with anger or frustration. They didn't need to challenge the manipulators head-on. All they needed to do was stay grounded, stay centered, and allow everything to unfold in its own time. The final blow didn't come from a dramatic confrontation. It came from the quiet realization that the manipulators had already lost. Their false power, built on manipulation and emotional games, had crumbled under its own weight. And the Chosen One didn't need to do a single thing to make it happen. The power shift was inevitable. The manipulators thought they were still in control, but they were blind to the fact that the Chosen One had already won. The real power lay in the ability to detach, to remain calm, and to let the universe handle the consequences. The Chosen One didn't need to fight. They had already positioned themselves in such a way that the manipulators' own actions would be their undoing. When the time came for the final move, it was clean, precise, and inevitable. The manipulators had exposed themselves. Their arrogance had made them sloppy. Their emotional outbursts had made them predictable. And the Chosen One had been quietly waiting for this moment, watching, calculating, and preparing for the inevitable collapse of their enemy's illusion of control. The manipulators couldn't stop it. They couldn't reverse the damage they had done. By the time they realized what was happening, it was already too late. The Chosen One had positioned themselves for victory, not through force but through awareness. They had let the manipulators expose themselves, and in doing so, they had gained control without ever lifting a finger. The game was over. The balance had shifted. The manipulators had lost. The Chosen One had always known this moment would come. They had always understood that the true path to power was not through confrontation or chaos, but through patience, silence, and strategic observation. They didn't need to force the outcome. They didn't need to fight. They simply needed to wait. And when the time came, they made their move not with force, but with quiet, undeniable precision. The manipulators never saw it coming, and that's why they lost. In the end, the Chosen One had won, not because they were the loudest, the strongest, or the most aggressive. They had won because they were the most patient, the most aware, and the most strategic. They knew when to step back and let others expose themselves. And when the time came, they moved with purpose, with clarity, and with the certainty that comes from understanding the game at a level that no one else could even comprehend. This is how the Chosen One moves through life, quiet, unbothered, observant, and always one step ahead. The manipulators thought they were in control. They thought their noise, their tactics, and their emotional games would win the day. But the Chosen One knew better. They knew that true power doesn't need to scream. It doesn't need to dominate. It simply needs to wait for the right moment, and when that moment comes, it moves with precision, and everything else falls apart. The manipulators never saw it coming. And now the Chosen One stands victorious, not through force, but through the quiet power of awareness. In the end, the Chosen One didn't need to announce their power. They didn't need to broadcast their strengths or their capabilities to the world. They understood, perhaps on a deeper level than most, that true power doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need to be confirmed by the opinions of others. In fact, the power of the Chosen One lay precisely in their ability to remain grounded, to stay calm, and to allow the world around them to expose itself. While others were busy screaming for attention, chasing after recognition, and desperate to prove their worth, the Chosen One stood still, observing and waiting for the right moment. They didn't need to convince anyone of their strength because they already knew what they were capable of. Reflection on the journey. When we look back on the journey of the Chosen One, it's clear that their path wasn't about forceful domination or loud displays of superiority. It was about presence, about staying true to themselves and to their own inner power. The loudest voices in the room may demand attention, but the most powerful ones rarely seek it. The Chosen One knew this truth intimately. Their journey was not about proving anything to anyone. It was about trusting in their own abilities, trusting that their stillness was a weapon, and trusting that the universe would always reveal the truth in its own time. Throughout their journey, the Chosen One stayed grounded. They weren't swayed by the noise around them. They didn't allow the distractions of life, the opinions of others, or the manipulations of those around them to dictate their actions. They understood that true control comes from within. When you can remain composed, while everything around you is in chaos, that's when you truly possess power. The Chosen One never needed to flaunt their intelligence, their awareness, or their ability to read people. They simply knew. They understood that real strength lies in the ability to observe and wait for the perfect moment. They didn't need to dominate the room. They simply needed to be the calm at the center of the storm. As the loud ones played their games, overestimated their own power, and showed their true colors, the Chosen One quietly observed. They understood that every emotional outburst, every manipulative tactic, and every false gesture of power was simply a window into the true nature of those around them. And it wasn't just about watching them, it was about understanding them. It was about recognizing the signs that others missed. The Chosen One knew that true mastery comes from understanding not just of the external world, but of oneself. They recognized that in order to succeed, they had to remain in full control of their own emotions and actions. By doing so, they allowed others to expose themselves. And when they finally made their move, when the time was right, it was already over. The Chosen One didn't need to prove their strength to anyone. They knew that true strength lies not in how loud you can be, but in how silently you can work, in how patiently you can wait. The most dangerous people in any room aren't the loudest. They are the ones who sit quietly watching, observing, and calculating. And the Chosen One embodied this principle. They didn't rush to take action. They simply waited for the right moment. And when they moved, it was with such precision that it was impossible for anyone to stop them. In the end, the Chosen One didn't just win the battle, they won because they understood something that most people never will. They understood that power doesn't come from outward displays or attention-seeking behavior. Power comes from within. It comes from the ability to remain composed, to stay grounded, and to trust in your own strength. The Chosen One didn't need to announce their power because they already knew they had it. And that quiet confidence, that silent strength, was what ultimately led them to victory, affirming the importance of recognizing one's own power. The journey of the Chosen One is a reminder to all of us to recognize our own power. Too often we look to the world for validation, to others for confirmation that we are worthy, capable, or strong. But the Chosen One knew that the real power lies in recognizing who you are, what you're capable of, and how much strength you have within yourself without needing anyone else to tell you. The world will always try to tell you who you are, what you can do, and how you should behave. But the true Chosen One knows that they don't need to be defined by the world. They define themselves. They know that their worth doesn't come from the approval of others, it comes from within. In a world where so many people are seeking validation through loud acts of defiance or displays of power, the Chosen One teaches us the importance of silent strength. They show us that you don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to compete for attention to be acknowledged. You don't need to be the loudest in the room to make the biggest impact. Your power comes from your ability to remain true to yourself, to stay grounded and centered, no matter how chaotic the world around you becomes. And in the end, that silent strength will always win. The Chosen One also teaches us the importance of patience. So often we rush through life anxious to prove ourselves or to get ahead. But the Chosen One understood that sometimes the best thing to do is to wait. Wait for the right moment. Wait for the right opportunity. And when that moment comes, take action with precision. Don't waste energy reacting to the noise around you. Instead, observe, understand, and when the time is right, make your move. This is the true path to power. Not through force, not through noise, but through patience, observation, and a deep understanding of yourself and the world around you. The Chosen One didn't need to prove their worth. They simply embodied it. Now it's time for you, the Chosen One, to embrace your own quiet strength. Trust in your ability to observe, to stay calm, and to be the one in control, not through force, but through restraint. Trust in your own power, and don't let anyone tell you that you need to shout, to fight, or to compete in order to win. The world may be chaotic, but you know that the most powerful person in the room is the one who can remain calm, collected, and composed no matter what's happening around them. I encourage you to embrace your own strategic quietness. Recognize that you don't need external validation. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You are already enough just as you are. Trust in your own strength, your own abilities, and your own power. And never let anyone make you feel like you need to shout to be heard. The universe has a way of rewarding those who choose silence and patience, and the Chosen One knows that the most powerful moves are often the ones made in quietude. If this message resonates with you, if you feel it deep inside, I encourage you to take action. Not because someone else told you to, but because you understand the truth for yourself. Like this video. Share it. Comment with 777 if this message has given you clarity, strength, and confidence. And most importantly, subscribe because the journey of the Chosen One is just beginning. And I want you to be part of it. Let this be the start of a new chapter where you trust yourself, trust your own power, and move through life with the quiet confidence of the Chosen One. Stay calm. Stay observant. Stay grounded. You already know the game. Now it's time to play it. The universe rewards those who understand that real power doesn't announce itself. It simply is. You are the Chosen One, and your time has come. Let's step forward with purpose and with power, quiet, focused, and unstoppable.